Jordan Moore and John Jackson.
Hello and welcome to Trojans Live on ESPN LA 710. Tune in and live right here on Twitter at USC_athletics. It was a bounce-back Friday night for USC at the Coliseum. We will break down the comeback with head coach Clay Helton, wideout Tyler Vaughns, and assistant coach Kerry Colbert. Plus, we'll look back at track and field's national championship for the women. The NCAA 200-meter champion Angie Analyst is in the house. I am Jordan Moore alongside John Jackson. And JJ, hopefully a season-turning victory we got to witness last week.
Yeah, no question about it. I think that the Trojans obviously really needed that from a burst, from even a confidence standpoint. The biggest thing for me, the biggest takeaway was that, remember a week ago when they played against Texas, we were saying, hey, where's the response from a team in terms of how they're going to react to negative situations? Obviously, Texas didn't work out, but they were definitely in a negative situation against Washington State. And the way this team responded, I think, showed maturity and the way that these coaches are able to get these guys ready for games and to handle those tough situations.
Well, that's my first question for Coach, so let's bring him on. Countdown to kickoff with Mito. Swiss watches since 1918, the official timekeeper of USC Athletics. Be the first to own the Fight On limited edition timepiece. True Trojan fans visit shopmito.com/USC. That's shopmito, MIDO.com/USC. Coach, down 13 in the third quarter, coming off back-to-back losses. Not an enviable place to be. What snapped in, though, at that moment?
Some great kids and their resiliency. We had said it was going to be a four-quarter battle. There was no doubt about it. We wanted to start fast and finish strong. They had been a team that had scored 38 points to only 2 for their opponents in the first quarter, and they were a strong finish team. And we felt like if we could win the first and fourth quarter, that we'd win the game. And you look up, we won the first quarter 7-3. We won the fourth quarter 15-6. And the kids, in the third quarter, down 2 touchdowns. I never saw any panic. I mean, they just, all right, let's go down, cut this to a one-score game. We did, and then the defense started to click in. I thought once we got Porter back on the field, started getting the quarterback off his spot a little bit more pressure, not as much time. It ended up being the difference.
To me, Coach, this game, it was obviously won in the fourth quarter, but the subliminal message to me was sent in the first quarter, actually at the coin toss. Coin toss happens. You guys decide to take the ball as opposed to most people defer to the second half. You take the ball, then you drive the ball down their throat. Was that a subliminal message to your team to say, hey, look, enough is enough, let's get down to it? Yeah,
we said it in our last team meeting. I said, guys, we're going to take the ball. We talked all week about starting fast. I believe in your offense. I believe this is going to be a breakout game for you. We're going to establish the run early. And they did. I thought they brought a physical mindset to the table, and they fed the whole game. They looked glued in. They looked focused, and it wasn't perfect. It wasn't perfect, but their demeanor all the way through, I thought was really good.
Yeah, trust in the offense is also trust in the freshman quarterback. I know you ran it a ton on that first drive, but ultimately JT Daniels throws for 3 touchdowns. It seems to us he keeps getting better week after week. Where do you see him improving week after week?
Well, I could feel it. I actually talked to Tyler Vaughns when we were at practice, and I said, man, you can feel the chemistry starting to come between JT and the wideouts. He had it with Amon-Ra coming in, but it took a couple weeks to really kind of feel them out, and you could feel it in practice last week. There were some throws you go, whoa, and I mean, how did you know he was going to be there? And it carried over to the game. I mean, there were some throws in that game, there's some throws and catches that I was like, wow, that's pretty darn special. If that continues, it makes it hard for a defense to be able to say, okay, hey, we better play some too high coverage or these guys are going to go deep on us.
And that's one thing that I noticed as well in terms of how they're playing you guys offensively. A lot of it's played off of JT. Everybody says, hey, freshman quarterback, I'm going to make him beat us. Do you think that this is sort of the sign that, hey, we can win throwing the football if we have to?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's 2 back-to-back games where, he had a 300-plus yard game at Texas, and then I thought he did a tremendous job in our RPO game of making the right decisions and see, especially in the red zone, of being able to see man-to-man coverage and saying, you know what, if you're going to do that, I'm going to hurt you. And between him and the wideouts, I thought they really stepped up their game.
Yeah, you mentioned the running game. It was kind of a strange night for the running game because you come out and you're absolutely on fire in that first drive, and then for 2 quarters you really went backwards, and then the fourth quarter you closed strong. Did it give you lots of, what did you see on film? Did it sort of give you lots of good film to be like, this worked, this didn't? Like, it was a really obvious contrast.
Yeah, it was a strange game in the fact that we were playing a team that's a passing team, but it felt like the dive option. It felt like it was 15 play drives and just making third downs and keeping and dinking and donking, and the chains were moving, and you felt like, gosh almighty, every possession is going to have to count here. You know, we only end up, I think, with 57, 58 plays total, and you know, we have that first drive. We got unfortunate on the next couple drives, one with a penalty. We had one with a snap. We're first and 10 on the 40, and we snap it over our head for -15. We get behind the chains there, and really didn't catch back up until the second half, to where you say, okay, now we're back in a rhythm, we're back in a flow. But overall, to score 39 points, to be really 4-4 in the red zone, if you don't count the 2-minute drive, to be able to function in the red zone like we did, we took a step forward. Not to say that we're the Green Bay Packers yet, but to be able to see an improvement was good to see.
You know, both teams were efficient in that game. There wasn't a turnover in that game, which is really odd when you have, you know, a team that likes to throw the ball as much as Washington State does. You hope to get some turnovers, and then, you know, even with your team, that's the good news. There wasn't any turnovers. What do you do from a defensive side, coordinator side, to try to create some turnovers?
Yeah, maybe I need to stop talking about it, stop practicing. Every week we have turnover circuit drills. I actually go through what we call the turnover DNA. I break down all the turnovers for basically the last year and a half. And where is it coming from? Is it the quarterback? Is it a specific skill player that's carrying the ball loose so we can target, rake out, punch out, knock out? I may be addressing it too much, to be honest with you. So, and we're going to continue. Hopefully they start coming up. It was really important in this game last year against Arizona, if you remember, especially in the first half. The lead that we got, we're off the turnovers by Arizona. So it's very important. I really felt in that game on Friday night, if we committed one turnover, just one, we would have lost that game. It was one of those games where you had to be perfect because it was going back and forth, and somebody was going to get up 2 scores if you ended up turning the ball over.
Well, the weirdest stat on that turnover question, you lead the nation in pass breakups, and you have 0 interceptions. So, I mean, you have so many guys getting their hands on the ball without getting interceptions. Well, I mean, but it's not like I remember a million where they've just hit the guys in the chest. So you've got a lot of guys in position, and you just sort of stay the course and wait for a couple to deflect up in the air for you.
Yeah, well, some of that, as far as the interceptions go, if you truly break down Coach Clancy's coverages, they are unique. They have so many man principles to them. And you don't see a lot of interceptions in man coverage. You see a lot of pass breakups. In zone coverages, that's where you see the tip ball that goes up and it gets to the safety. But we do play a lot of man principles in our coverages, and a lot of times that equals incomplete passes and breakups rather than interceptions.
You know, I credit Coach Clancy from this perspective. I mean, you give up, you know, way too many points for a USC defense, but there were probably 4 or 5 defensive schemes within that game. He went from, you know, man, then he went to zone a little bit. He went to some robber coverage. I mean, he really tried everything and brought a lot of different looks, and it didn't confuse him. Now that you've watched the film, how much of that was sort of the right thing to do? Obviously, you got the win, but
I was so impressed with their quarterback. I thought there might be a fall off from Luke Falk to Gardner, and there just wasn't. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I was beyond impressed with the kid. You could tell he was a graduate. You can tell he's played a lot of ball, has completed a lot of passes. His accuracy, getting the ball out on time. They're going to win a lot of ball games with that kid. There's no question. I'll be shocked if they don't contend for the North, just with the weapons that they have in that offense. And if he continues to play like he did the other night, they're going to go a long way.
Yeah, it was like death by 1,000 paper cuts.
Yeah.
I think they had one drive. It was like 14 plays and 50 yards. I mean, it really was. You had to be patient. You waited them out, and ultimately you get it done in the end. We'll talk about the Arizona Challenge next. The fun thing about the Pac-12, boy, you go from that to a completely different challenge at Khalil Tate and the Wildcats. More Trojans Live next on ESPN LA 710. Coach, you know, this time last week there was a lot of talk about special teams, a lot of scrutiny on that third phase. How rewarding was it? How good did it feel to basically win the game on special teams there at the end.
Yeah, I've always said I think John Baxter is one of the best teachers in the country and has put together terrific schemes. Had us right in position to block a punt on versus Texas, and every one of our kids knew this week we had the opportunity to block a field goal. And it was the Diablo block. We knew Jay Tufeli was going to have the opportunity to get free in the gap that he came in through. And it worked to perfection. But it was good to see all our phases from our kick cover team continuing to do great things. Alex has continued 4 out of 6 touchbacks. And when they did return, it was a 19-yard line, 23-yard line. Our punt was God help us. we actually, I really thought thrived in that area. 38-yard net on the day. I thought our coverage on that was terrific. So it was good to see our special teams really thrive.
Let's talk about punting real quick because I know, obviously you rely on the punter to do a lot of things to set up the coverage. And I've seen the Trojans will try to directional punt sometimes, and sometimes we'll just go ahead and kick it. How hard is a directional punt for some of these guys? Because it's something that you don't do in high school because they're just so good.
Well, you directional punt because you want to be able to dictate the coverage and where it goes so you can have better coverage lanes, and that's one of the things that you ended up seeing the other night. There was nowhere to go as far as running. I thought Reed did a tremendous job of placing the ball where we wanted him to, as well as, he's not hitting 60-yard punts, but he hit 40-yard punts that had great hang time. It allowed the coverage to get down there and really know where to go with the ball. And so he's really coming around. I thought he gained some confidence this past game, and hopefully that will continue. He's a senior. He's a strong-minded kid. I know he wants to do well for our team. It was good to see him improve this week.
Well, this week you head down to Tucson in search of your first road victory of the season, a late-night kick, which is a very good thing. It beats what we had 2 years ago playing at 110 degrees. 7:30 kick, ESPN2, and right here on ESPN LA 710. And, you know what you're up against in Khalil Tate. We got to see that show last year at the Coliseum. Do you take comfort in really how well you did for 2.5 quarters of that game, or do you have nightmares about sort of how he closed it and put a real scare into you?
Well, I tell you, it's a two-headed monster right now. You know the athleticism of Khalil. I mean, we saw it firsthand last year. And, what they also got going right now is their running back, J.J. Taylor.
Yep.
And
another local product.
Yeah, Khalil has had a little bit of ankle injury, and you can tell they're leaning on JJ to be able to lead the way, and he led the way last week for 280 something yards rushing. So it's not only stopping Khalil, it's stopping that spread offense run game. And I've always been impressed with Khalil's deep ball accuracy. I think he's one of those kids that does throw a very, very good deep ball. It hurts you because you're trying to play one high coverage, you're trying to load the box, and then he'll launch it to Poindexter, and they do a great job of bringing it down.
Talk about Khalil Tate a little bit because you've actually now seen him. You played against him directly. I mean, you know him as high school as well as far as recruiting goes, but now when you see him on the field, the thing that impresses me about him is he is just better than what you think. Yeah. He's faster than what you think. Yes. He's a lot stronger than what you think. How does that sort of play in, and what kind of warning can you give the defense? Because, like I said, you have to watch him to appreciate him, but some of these guys haven't seen him yet.
Well, we went into last year's game. We had really studied him, and we had to treat him like a running back. I remember when we recruited him, we thought he was going to be a great running back. How physically strong he was, how fast he was, and he actually runs the ball. When he pulls it down, he is not sliding. He was running it like a running back. So we had to go into that game last year and treat it thus, though, to be able to treat him like a runner. And it was something that I thought we did good for 3 quarters. Then the offense got going, and you get that spread no huddle rolling. It's hard to stop, especially if the plays get higher and higher and higher. So we got to do a good job of getting them off the field. We got to do a good job of rolling our personnel and staying fresh and playing a 4-quarter game because they can put up a lot of points.
You talked a lot about confidence going into this past game and then coming out of this past game, and it is one of those sort of powerful, hard to quantify, aspects of sports. And do you feel like that confidence boost now will allow this young team, particularly this young offense, to take it on the road and go get that first road victory this season.
Yeah, I thought that game the other night was huge for us. I mean, when you're sitting there in this third quarter and, they come out, they establish a drive right in their first drive, they go up 2 scores, you're at a crossroads, and it's time to decide who you're going to be.
Yep.
And you saw a team that really fought back and really willed themselves to win a game, and did it all together. Whether it was offense coming back and scoring, defense having a tremendous fourth quarter, special teams coming through. We won it as a team, and that's what I told them today. That's who we have to be this year. As we grow up and mature, we're going to have to be a team that plays great team football, not just one side, but great team football. And you started to see that in that second half.
Kevin Sumlin takes over this team at Arizona in his first year as a head coach. How difficult has it been to prepare for a coach that you haven't faced? I mean, you're familiar with the talent, but the coaching, how much has that changed over the course of the year?
Yeah, you kind of watch their philosophy of where he's been. He's been a great offensive coach. Kevin's been a great offensive coach for a long time, right. And you can see his philosophy in their offense, as well as Coach Mazzoni. I mean, we've seen him firsthand when he was at UCLA and did a great job against us. So offensively, I think you got 2 brilliant guys running their offense. Defensively, it's a little bit different because they did keep some of their defensive staff, and we know some of the DB coaches that are there too. So we know their philosophy a little bit. They have changed a little bit from the first 2 games to what they did in game 3 and 4. They kind of made a philosophy shift. We'll see what comes up when we're down at their place. But they went in with 2 games with one philosophy and then kind of changed it after the Houston game. Have had some success with it, and we'll see if they continue.
Well, battle of 2-2 teams, so kind of a swing game there, and also your first foray this season into the Pac-12 South, and you know how important those games. You always talk about that as the reigning Pac-12 champs. Thank you, Clay Helton. Hey, we talked about how the receivers, the veteran receivers in particular, stepped up in this last game, and we got the guy that made most of the big catches next. Tyler Vaughn's coming up on Trojans Live.